Hey guys, got another video for you today. Today we got some big things going on for the Eclipse, so real quick let me just run over everything. I got a new turbo for it. I got all the OEM Diaqueen, same gear oil that would be ran in the Evo 3, 4, 5, so on. There's the factory gear oil. I'm going to be running the 7585 in the transmission and running their standard SAE 90 for the LSD4 in the rear diff and the transfer case. Everyone says run Redline MT90 and shockproof in the rear. And I'm not tracking the car. I'm not doing anything crazy with it, so I don't think I need to go that crazy with the oil. The big thing is the new turbo. Now, I'm either going to get some serious hate or a lot of love. Probably serious hate. Straight from eBay, got a 16G turbo. Now let me tell you before we get too far into this, I've already inspected this turbo and it looks great. Honestly, it looks great. The only thing is, obviously, you got the cheap compressor cover. I'm sorry, but for the price, it's not terrible. This turbo was just under $300. And this is actually a Rev 9 turbo, and the pictures kind of were deceiving because I had a Godspeed 16G in one of my Eclipses before and had no issues with it. I actually took it off the car, ran it on 2 other DSMs, running full boost at like 20 pounds, no problems with it at all. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to get another Godspeed turbo. Well, it turns out Godspeed is no longer Godspeed. Godspeed only makes suspension parts now, and so Rev 9 sort of took over Godspeed's performance department, and they also do some suspension stuff. Well, this looks very similar to the Godspeed turbo, except this little tag here is engraved and is no longer on a blue tag that is riveted on, and it did say GSP here on the compressor housing, and it no longer says that. Now, the advertising pictures on eBay showed that stuff, but this turbo does not have that. Anyways, you can see the compressor wheel there, much bigger than stock. And the thing that I think makes this look sort of promising is that they actually went ahead and they oiled everything. They put some pre-lube into the turbo. You can see some oil there. It really looks well built. The push rod here for the wastegate, you know, it feels nice and sturdy. Doesn't feel cheap at all. You know, it looks good to me. You know, and they went out of their way to protect it, close all the holes and openings besides the coolant feed there. But yeah, so pretty good. It came with all the stuff, new studs for the exhaust, that sort of thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and install it. Also, before we get too far, last night I actually had to take out my upper control arms. What ended up happening was I was working on the passenger side, and the ball joint here, when I went to tighten it, it was actually sort of stripped out, as you can see there, and the nut would not tighten onto the ball joint. Now, let me say this, the ball joint was not spinning. I know that for a fact because I marked it with a paint pen, and the ball joint itself was not spinning at all. It was just that the nut was, it stripped it out somehow, so I don't know. It might have already been stripped, and when I just undid it, because like I said, this suspension's been undone and whatever before 100 times now, so I went ahead and just got new upper control arms and just pulled both out. That way I can just replace both and be done with it. So that's new. That's what's coming. We're not off to the best start here, guys. So basically, these bolts here actually came with my O2 dump housing from OBX Racing or whatever, so another eBay part. But these bolts and nuts perfectly, so the nuts they gave me with the turbo do not want to go down over, they don't want to thread on to these studs. They had a lot of problems threading onto the studs that came with the turbo, but the nut that's on here now is one of the nuts that came with the OBX Racing downpipe piece. Also, the studs do not want to thread into the turbo at all. having a hell of a time getting them to thread into the turbo. So I'm still fighting that, trying to get them to thread in. But since these are like the perfect thread pitch for the turbo, I'm just going to use all these bolts as long as I have enough room, which I should on most of these have enough room. Right there is probably going to be an issue, so that's probably an instance where I'm going to try and use the stud. And that should be the only trouble spot. Well, guys, eBay Turbo is not off to a good start. Basically, all I'm going to do is, if this does not work, I'm going to just buy Evo 316G and a new exhaust housing and everything, call it a day, whatever, I don't care. But I figured I'd give this a shot first. If it saves me money, great. If it ends up costing me more money to go back and do it, then I will. But I just figured I'd give this turbo a chance since I used one before. The problem here was, well, maybe I should have used the thicker exhaust gasket. This one actually came with my CX Racing downpipe here, but the one that came with the turbo was a thinner gasket, and it sort of had a slightly different shape rather than the traditional circle here for the wastegate dump. So I used the one that came with the turbo. But if I would have used this one, I think it would have helped. So here's where we're off to our bad start. You can see these studs are completely and what happened was, as I'm trying to put these things on, I ended up using a bolt there. But you can see it has some gap there. I can't get this thing tight. All the threads are bitched up like this because I was using vice grips after the fact to try and tighten these bolts, or try and tighten these studs down. There, it's coming through a little bit, but you can see it's cross-threaded coming out of the turbo. And I did not cross-thread these at all. I literally threaded them in. They started threading, and then they got really tight. And it was every single one was like that. So straight out the gate, they gave me either the wrong thread or something. What I'm going to do now is get everything ready, get the return line ready, put the coolant lines on. That's the word I'm looking for. Sorry, I'm super tired now because of this. And I checked my ARP studs, my ARP bolts, sorry, for the turbo. Literally thread straight through there like they're supposed to. So that's good news. Still waiting on my oil line because I have a special oil restrictor coming for this, so I don't blow out the oil seals as soon as the thing turns over. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the water lines in the turbo, get everything pretty much plumbed up, and then I'm going to just mount the thing in the car. If I get the car running and it leaks for a little while, fine. Like I said, I can always upgrade down the road. It's not like this is a permanent thing. Not that big of a deal. So I'm not going to make it a big deal. And if you're wondering why there's two bolts here, the funny thing is this bolt stopped spinning. So I put another bolt on, and that bolt tightened onto that bolt and actually pulled the stud through. So I was just trying anything I could to get this thing to work. It looks disgusting, but I think it might work. We're probably just going to have a very small exhaust leak. So if we have one, so be it. If not, great. But regardless, worst case scenario, this turbo's junk, and I'll throw the T25 back on. Best case scenario, it holds up for a couple months, and then if I end up building this thing over the spring, or sorry, over the winter, then I can actually go back, and put in, a good Evo 316G. So anyways, budget was kind of an issue, and that's why I went with this. So hopefully it doesn't come back and bite me in the ass. Okay, so I'm hoping that all the parts that came with this turbo are just junk, and maybe the turbo will actually be half decent. But I don't know. It came with this replacement water line, and I have no idea what this is for. Maybe it's for a 1G. I'm not sure. But anyways, I ended up just reusing my factory lines because I feel better using my factory lines. The only modification I had to make at all was I had to cut this bracket so that it can clear the turbo there. Besides that, it's pretty much at the exact factory spot it would be. The only thing is it came with this. It came with this drain pipe here, which looks a lot like the OEM drain pipe. And the thing I'm noticing is the hole for the drain pipe on this is smaller than the hole for the drain on the turbo itself. And I just don't know if I'm comfortable running this. So I don't know if this is going to be adequate drainage. And if you look at it, they like, I don't know if it's powder coat or what, but they have this black paint all over the entire thing. And they have it on the face where it needs to meet up for a gasket, because now what's happening is you can just see how uneven the face is. And if you put something on there, it's probably not going to seal right. So anyways, I have this old style kit. I have a much larger diameter drain and a much larger diameter. You got a rubber hose with clamps. You know, there shouldn't have an issue with failure or anything on this. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use this as the oil drain, and I would feel more comfortable using this. So I think I got pretty much everything in. I have the coolant lines reconnected. I have the intercooler piping hooked up. I gotta be honest with you guys, I normally don't have any issues with buying eBay stuff. I really don't. But just, you gotta be careful. It's pick and choose. Some stuff's great, some stuff's not. So, I mean, I made it work, and hopefully this will work. And, you know, we'll see. Time will tell. I have a feeling these couplers might pop off and I'll get like a boost leak or something. And I've had issues before where this J-pipe will bend a little bit. This is a really nice thick J-pipe. I've had some thin ones before, and when you buy a thin one, and also like this real thin gasket it came with, the one that I have on here is like double the thickness of that, maybe triple the thickness. So when you buy a nice thick J-pipe like that, and you have a nice thick gasket, usually you won't get a boost leak there because it won't bend. But I've had these J-pipes bend before, and when they bend, you'll have a massive boost leak, literally right here at this flange. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put the intake on now, and once I get the intake on, I'll hook up the vacuum lines, get the vacuum lines hooked up, and then the only thing left to do is drop the radiator in here, which then I'll do, and run the oil line. And then obviously once the throttle body piece gets here, the block off plate, I can run the intercooler piping down to that side, and hopefully that should be it. Alright guys, I think I'm going to call it a day for now. I did a couple more things, put the radiator in, put the fan in. Well, the fan was already on the radiator, but put the coolant hoses on. That was a challenge in itself. I'm just going to get rid of these freaking, probably at some point I'm going to end up just getting rid of these hoses and getting black hoses like I originally wanted. Not crazy about the color, and I don't know, I gotta be honest, it just, you can see how it like pinches here. They're cheap hoses, and they're okay for like the small sections and stuff like that, but this big section, it's just so flimsy. It just doesn't, I had to cut it like 7 times because it was way too long. And I have the same problem with the lower hose. I didn't put it in yet because it's way too long. I'm going to have to cut the hell out of it. And I have the boost controller down here. So I have one obviously going to the pressure coming from the outlet of the turbo, and then one at the wastegate, and then the just manual boost controller down here. So obviously up for more, back for less. It's a cheapo. It's only like 30 or 40 bucks, but it's pretty nice. It's got a really nice feel to it. And it actually has 2 different springs you can swap out if one of them is too stiff or not stiff enough. So you have they have like the intermediate spring in it now, and then you can swap out the 2 other springs. Alright guys, so I got the air dam caps in now on both sides, and the thing is so ready. It's literally ready. So I got the throttle body back together, got everything going down here, everything's good. Got the band clamps on, got the intake on, everything's connected. Oil return line is connected now. Everything's here, everything's plugged in, everything's literally turnkey, ready to start the car. I still need to connect the vacuum hose yet to the valve cover, and I should have a... sorry, I got to connect the intake pipe to that as well. And I should get a catch can, but I mean, I can start the car without one. And I got to put one more band clamp down there on that, and I'm ready to go, guys. So I'm super excited. All I'm waiting on is the oil restrictor for the turbo. Alright guys, I'm going to end the video here today. I really appreciate you watching. It means a lot to me. This has been a really, I feel like such a long build. It's actually been pretty quick. but it feels so long. It's been so many hours of work and labor, and there's so much stuff off camera that you guys haven't been able to see. You know, so much work that's been being done that I haven't just, it's hard to record while you're doing stuff, especially when I don't have anyone helping me or anyone filming for me or anything like that. So anyways, guys, like I said, I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys again soon, and hopefully we'll have this thing running.